So guys, what if Naruto was Path of God Ophis as slave in HighSchool Dxd Part 1? We all know how Uzumaki Naruto's luck works, don't we? The bastard can get 6 royal straight flush in a row with his eyes closed at one moment and wake up in the middle of an interplanetary war between Asgardians and Kryptonians the next. The worst thing, or the best, depending on how you look at it, is that Naruto considers both of the scenarios to be good luck. Can you believe it? Well, of course you can, you're just as insane as he is. So if there was one single moment, that one moment in the history of Earth which Naruto will choose to come to this universe, when do you think Naruto will end up? Here. 1205 AD. Naruto stared at the form of a beast which was at least half the size of Great Red. The power though was nowhere even near his. The beast had 3 necks and 1 head attached to each neck, making him have 3 heads. He also had 3 tails. There was a man with 20 golden wings and a halo battling the beast, or rather he was trying his best to stay alive, while he put layers upon layers of seals on top of the beast. Naruto looked toward his side and stared at the form of his beloved goddess Ophis. She was in her childish appearance again. He didn't have any problem with it, and he liked Ophis no matter what form she took. What do you think? Ophis looked thoughtful for a moment before she replied. Let's not interfere right now, you have already absorbed more than enough of 666's power that this little piece of him is nearby negligible to you. Naruto hummed, yes, that was indeed true, and maybe, just maybe this way Trihexa will be able to revive someday. He knew how all the pieces of Trihexa were gathering energy and also trying to fuse with each other, so maybe if he allowed them then they'll fuse back. He could certainly use a challenge. No one other than Great Red could even hope to stand against him anymore. Ophis would not fight him. 666 was still in hibernation, fate was Nakombat oriented, and death, well, the last time he challenged her to a fight, she tied him to a bed and rode him till he was barely conscious and gave up the fight, so no fighting her ever again. Ophis just smirked as he was raped by her. Well, he wasn't actually trying to fight against her too, and as they always say it isn't rape if you like it, and the threesome after that was just an awesome bonus. Still, it's been so long since he had a good fight. Fighting Anxarum was fun, fighting Aknologia was fun, fighting 2-on-1 against Yamamoto and Iwich was fun, fighting 12-on-1 against Beerus and his 11 sibling gods of destruction was fun, fighting against all 3 admirals and all 7 Shichibukai during Ace's execution was fun, fighting armies of White Walkers with a wooden sword was fun, fighting against hordes of titans outside Wall Maria in just his human form with a kitchen knife was fun, throwing Kal-El and his cousin Kar-El, or as they like to call themselves Superman and Supergirl, into a blue sun and then fighting them. Now that was fucking awesome. All of those things were so fun that he didn't even realize it at that time, about how much stronger he was getting from fighting against such monsters, and soon he was so strong that those previous opponents became nothing more than utter bore to him. Yes, he could hold back, seal some of his powers or something similar, but he was tired of sealing his powers and holding back. He missed those days when all that happened when he released his full power was a few people disintegrating into atomic dust and feeling like the planet's gravity just increased 10 times. Now he could even release his powers completely anywhere outside the dimensional gap without destabilizing and destroying that universe. Yes, perhaps it was better to let 666 revive, so that Naruto can enjoy a fight with him before he kill him and take all his power permanently. Yes, he wanted to fight, but there were more important things in life as well, like his family, a few of who were already in this world, and the rest that he didn't send here ahead of time were in stasis in his pocket dimension. What about that useless thing who is having a hard time sealing a single piece of 666, which is barely half as strong as my original universe's piece of 666, Shinju, ever was? Though it might be better to kill the weakling and be done with him, I think we should just let him be, he is going to die soon anyway. Naruto wondered why Ophis thought that whoever this guy was going to die soon. Who the hell is he anyway? Well, most just call him God, which is terribly misleading, considering how many gods there are in this universe. He is the leader of Judo-Christian faction, the God mentioned in Bible. His other pronunciations are annoying, so you can just call him Jehovah. And in case some of you didn't know, Jehovah is actually the name of the God mentioned in Bible. Please remember it as I will be using it. It gets very confusing to me about which god the story is mentioning, and unlike the canon, which is quite pathetic BTW, the only thing good about HSDXD is its rich background, which is exactly what is needed for writing a good fanfic. I plan to actually make other factions do something, which means lots of gods. Naruto turned his head and looked at the unimpressive looking guy. He did actually look impressive in his own way, but to Naruto, everybody was unimpressive, as long as you were not one of his Y lovers. This is the guy that spoke of forgiveness and love at one moment and then told his followers to rape the women of other factions the next moment. The guy who kicked his own son out of his home because said son told him that he'll serve and love only you my father and not a bunch of humans. This is the pathetic specimen that kicked his angels out of heaven because they taught humans how to read, write, sing, etc. Naruto spoke in a very incredulous tone. Yes, replied Ophis blandly, the very same. You said that I can't kill him, right? Ophis smirked at Naruto's question that was spoken in a very excited and hopeful voice, and spoke before he could actually do what he was thinking of doing. You can't torture him as well, eh? Why I want to play evil doctor with a bad man. I was even thinking of putting him inside a box with 20,000 chakra-powered termites. Ophis turned her attention at Naruto after hearing that high-pitched and childish petulant whining and saw that Naruto was currently looking like a 5-year-old child, staring at her with a cute pout on his face, his eyes shining with childish sadness. Her lips twitched in a desire to have those cute lips between her own. She easily ignored the gruesome image that formed in her brain at the thought of what would happen to the man if he was indeed put into such a box and patted Naruto's head lovingly. Naruto wrapped his currently tiny arms around her waist and buried his face in her stomach, giggling happily. She spoke after a moment of wait. I have a better idea. Here. 1225 AD. Kurama sighed tiredly and rubbed the bridge of his nose in boredom. The man in front of him, an owl yokai, he still had no idea that such a species even existed, continued reading his report. He was currently slumped tiredly on his throne, not very kingly image, but he didn't care about what others thought, and he made sure that they knew that fact. He really wanted his wife Hisaka to take the throne as the ruler of Yokai faction. But Noo Hess the freaking 10-tailed fox, and thus more deserving of the title than his 9-tailed wife, who was obviously much more smarter and thus more suited to the job than him. These stupid little shits and their stupid bigotry, why the hell did he not have them executed by now again? Oh yes, Yasaka threatened me with 1 month of blue balls, that's why. He drowned out that boring owl's voice and thought back on how he ended up in this situation. It was a bit more than 3,000 years ago when he came to this world along with his 8 siblings and her. He still wondered what Naruto had seen in the annoying bitch. Did you know that she was pregnant with Naruto's children by the time they stepped into this world? He had no fucking idea when Naruto even got the chance to have with her, and he also had no idea how she bypassed that non-fertility seal that Naruto had put on himself. He was quite sure that Naruto had no idea that he had a woman pregnant. Can you believe it? After the last disaster that were her children, she went ahead and impregnated herself again. At least she didn't name them Hagoromo and Hamura this time. But seriously, Izanagi and Izanami. He already knew that Naruto was going to laugh his ass off at Kagaya, naming her children on Sharingan techniques, until of course he learned that they were his children. He was sure that he was going to enjoy the expression on Naruto's face. And then if that wasn't enough, she named her grandchildren, Amaterasu, Sasano and Tsukiyomi. It's been 3 fucking millennia, and yet he's still cold and put the memories of the Uchiha bastards behind him. It was like he was cursed. Though now he knew that Naruto at least passed his incestuous genes in his children, he nearly face-planted himself into the ground when he heard about that one. Still Izanagi and Izanami were more interested in fucking each other like rabbits, instead of going around and doing something stupid, like giving humans the ability to use chakra, so that was good. A few centuries later he received confirmation that the incestuous love was definitely in blood when he learned that Amaterasu was married to both of her brothers. Not that he had any problem with all that, of course. The first few centuries the 9 siblings too spent their time exploring each other in depth. The fact that Naruto created them adjustable bodies with which they could change their shape, size, gender, etc. massively increased their scope of possibilities. Yep, barely a few days in New Dimension, and Jaiuki was already starting the tentacle myth again, and this time Seiken also joined him. Well, the slime girl was quite nice, so he didn't actually have any problem with all that, of course. All Yokai knew that they are descendants of first 9 Yokai that first walked the earth 3,000 years ago, but not many knew that those 9 were still alive and going about their lives in the middle of them, and that their current king was the strongest of the 9. Well, not exactly. After setting up their country, the others left him in charge and went exploring the world, getting in trouble and other such thing. He was quite sure that Kakuo was going around playing as Poseidon's pet for a few centuries. Seriously, how many dolphins are there that can also become a horse? And seriously, Kraken. Did Jaiuki really think that they wouldn't find out about that one? 500 years ago, though, they started returning. They were all bored and tired, especially without Naruto's insanity to entertain them. Well, he couldn't blame them. He too was tired and wanted to leave all this shit to his descendants. Too bad that he was chosen as their leader to look after the things. They all joined with him in one body. Without Shinja's spirit, they were in complete control, and the remaining 8 gave Kurama the reins and went to sleep, telling him to wake them up when Naruto finally came from his journey. Kagaya too was bored during that time, apparently not satisfied with the way world was moving, and went into hibernation herself. Izanagi and Izanami, well, he actually had no idea what they were doing. He would not be surprised if they were still having in their bedroom or in hibernation, just like Kagaya, or just dead. Quite cold of him, yes, but it's just been so fucking long. He was really tired. He was actually thinking of leaving Kyoto without telling anyone, except his wife Hisaka. It was so strange. They were immortal before meeting Naruto and were satisfied with their lives, but now that Naruto has showed them peace and freedom, now that life was exciting, it was also very boring. Yeah, too dark and boring, let's just talk about something else. Things were quite well actually, they could be better of course, but he couldn't really bring himself to do the hard work. Just at that moment the door burst open and a messenger came running into the court. Kurama smiled brightly at him, which caused all his sharp teeth to show and his eyes to gleam, which caused a few yokai in his court to shiver in fright. Kurama though cared not for all that and just spoke to the messenger happily. Glad you came, I was just about to go on a rampage and kill something due to boredom. Kurama gave the owl yokai a pointed look which easily told everyone exactly who he wanted to kill first. Hisaka facepalmed, a few who knew Kurama closely snickered, and the rest paled in fear. The previously mentioned owl yokai blinked slowly, no expression visible on his face. My lord, the Great War has just ended. Instantly everyone became serious, including Kurama, who sat straight. Tell me everything. Yes my lord, this is the detailed report. The messenger gave a report in the form of a scroll to Hisaka. She did at least take care of paperwork to reduce her husband's stress. The messenger resumed after that. The summary is that the three biblical faction kept fighting, not caring for the death toll. It was good that you chased them away. As a few members of different factions that were not able to refuse were all the first casualties in the war. The war ended when Grigorous leader Azazel retreated from the war due to the massive death toll, and the remaining two factions followed. The messenger took a breath and resumed. The devil faction has lost all 7 of the Mayu, and 10 out of the 72 pillars, and almost 60% of their population. Families of 3 out of the 7 Mayu have been wiped out. The remaining 4 families are Lucifer, Asmodeus, Leviathan and Beelzebub. The fallen angels have not lost any leader, but they have lost 80% of their population, the angels. My lord, they have incurred a loss of 60% of their own population, and not lost 3 of the 7 archangels. Only Michael, Gabriel, Raphael and Uriel are alive now, but they are behaving strangely. They are not acting like winners. They seemed very worried and fearful during the last moments. Their god Jehovah was not seen during the final moments of the war. The messenger took a moment and tried to catch his breath. A nearby attendant handed a glass of water to the messenger. After drinking the water and thanking the attendant, the messenger resumed. My lord, it was a bloodbath. The causalities are massive. Fallen angels have lost 75% of their strength. Angels have lost 45% of their strength. And devils have lost 55% of their strength. All 3 of the Judo-Christian faction combined now are barely half as strong as they were before. Everyone's face brightened at that news. The Judo-Christian faction was troubling because all 3 of its sub-factions were as strong as most factions of the world, and attacking one of them would have gotten them ambushed by the other 2. Now all 3 factions combined are barely 1/5 times as strong as other factions. And knowing how badly these 3 Christian faction hates each other, the blow was massive. My lord, that's not all. The crusades that were happening in the human world are at their end stages too. Without the support of heaven, the church is losing very fast and thus losing ground. On the other side, our spies and underworld report that the situation is very volatile. The families of now dead Mayu and their supporters are pushing to continue the war, while most of the underworld want to live in peace instead of getting destroyed. They are on the verge of a civil war. Everyone's happiness went through the roof at that news. The Christian faction has been nothing but an annoyance to the rest of the world. They come last and act like they own the place. Not to mention, the devils and angels were very pathetic and proud species. They weren't even strong, just numerous, but their arrogance was out of the world. Now not the situation was turned. Of course, that was not all the truth. The truth was much worse and not something that would be found out soon. The truth that the god of Christian faction was dead, and how the devils were about to lose a lot of their population. In the end, all 3 factions would have lost almost 75 to 80% of their power. Kurama wondered what would have happened if he was not here, if he was not in this world, or if he had left Kyoto to roam around the world, if he didn't kill the messengers of angels. Devil and the fallen angel faction enraged when they came and ordered him to feel proud because they had chosen the yokai to fight in their honor and then killing any other they sent. Seeing Kurama's reaction, all the remaining factions of the world gave similar responses and closed their doors on the messengers' faces, making sure to hit hard enough to break the messenger's neck. The 3 factions learned soon that they were losing a lot of population before the war even started and held back, probably thinking of making them pay for their insolence after the end when they won. Kurama wondered how many factions would have been wiped out or weakened, fighting in a war that was not even theirs if he wasn't there. Would his descendants be slaves to those factions right now? Would they be serving arrogant devils and then get killed when they didn't like them? Would they be used as breeding stock to bolster their population and then thrown like trash? Kurama didn't know how right he was. He would never know. The only one who knew the fate was fate herself. And it was better that way. There would be no point in him finding out that the Nekomata would have been wiped out to the point that only 2 of them would remain alive, and those 2 would be servant to devil as well. It didn't matter what would have happened. The thing is that nothing happened. My lord. Now suddenly the messenger became very worried, but there was also hope in his eyes. How strange, thought Kurama and all the others who noticed this. What is it? Speak. shouted a wolf yokai rudely. My lord, there are multiple reports of a yokai being sighted in the war. Kurama's eyes widened, the rest of the room exploded in chatter. Who would dare ignore our orders? This won't cause any problems, right? They better not have trapped someone in an illusion or loyalty contracts, or I would tear them to pieces. And other such words were being passed around by worried and angry yokai. Kurama though remained calm, ignoring the angry mayhem around him and looking directly at the messenger. And instantly all the chatter stopped as people realized that the messenger was not done. My lord, the report said that he had 10 pitch black fox tails and 10 pitch black scaly dragon wings, 2 pitch black horns growing from his head and a third eye with spiral pattern and 10 comma pattern on the spiral on his forehead. The messenger gulped down his saliva nervously. Everyone around was silent, their eyes were wide with fear and hope. They had, all of them, grown up hearing stories about that man, about their true leader, about their god, about Uzumaki Naruto. The first 9 yokai made sure to educate their first children about the man who saved all 9 of them and was as close as brother but also as respected as a leader. Otsutsuki Kagaya also taught her children and later her grandchildren about their father Naruto, hoping that knowing about their father's deeds will make them try to be more like him and thus not end up similar to how both her first children ended up, stupid and arrogant and later torn apart and absorbed by Naruto in rage. When he learned how they betrayed their own mother for something as stupid and unachievable as peace, especially when it was them who was the main cause of wars in the land which later became known as elemental nations. So yes, everybody, every child, every grown-up had grown up hearing tales of Uzumaki Naruto and how, even right now he was on a journey to become more powerful and wise so that he could rule them properly and guide them to greatness. So hearing the report that someone who matched his expected appearance was now in their midst was both worrying and exciting. Hisaka ignored her own happiness though and looked at how Kurama was faring. She knew how much he missed Naruto after all, knew what Naruto meant to him. As everyone was chattering away happily and worriedly, only she saw that small, genuine smile on Kurama's face, along with that trail of tear that slid from his red-slitted eyes. Only she heard as he muttered lowly, "Finally you're back, aren't you, brother? I missed you so much." She smiled slightly. Yes, things were good and were going to get even better. He tried really hard, but he just couldn't stop the annoyance he was feeling. He grinded his teeth in anger and reminded himself that the bastard was doing this just to piss him off. 2 minutes, it's been 2 minutes since he had seen Naruto after about 3,000 years and he already wanted to kill the man. Why? Well, Yusaka-chan, you're even more beautiful than I imagined from the tales I heard about. Naruto's voice reached his ears and the kai that he started releasing, unconsciously of course, made everyone take a step back from Kurama in fear for their lives. Here he was standing like a loon with his arms spread wide for Naruto's hug and what does the bastard do? He walks right past him and hugs his wife Yusaka, as if his life depended on it. Even now he could feel him rubbing his cheek against hers and patting her head lovingly. I can't believe that something as beautiful as you came from Kurama, it's like a miracle. Calm down me, mauling their god in front of all these people is not a good thing. 30 centuries has passed and the first thing that he wants to do after seeing Naruto, well yes, he want to maul him and tear him into infinite pieces. But he took deep breaths and calmed himself down. He had millennials to calm his temper down after regaining his yang half from death, becoming whole, and thus getting his temper back. Hisaka's lips were twitching all this while. She knew she should go and calm Kurama down, but she couldn't help herself. She was a fox too, and thus mischievous pranks was in her blood. Naruto wasn't even trying to actually flirt with her. She could feel in the way that he hugged her and caressed her head that he looked at her as if she was his child or grandchild, which was true in certain way, since Kurama and Naruto were brothers in everything. Even blood, considering that the body that Kurama was in right now was created from Naruto's own flesh, and Yusaka was in the end Kurama's descendant, even if she was currently his wife. So she didn't actually feel unfaithful right now, only amusement. How about we ditch that loser and we go on a date somewhere? It took a while for Yusaka to get her senses back and realize that Kurama had finally lost it after that sentence. Then she went into shock, fear and horror at how Kurama has stopped their god in the middle of a palace brimming with traffic, people wanting to have a look at their god. The shock might also be due to how she was currently covered in blood and hugging a headless corpse that was shooting blood all around her. In the middle of all the shouting and pandemonium, she was barely able to realize that the hand that was caressing her head was still moving. The detached head of Naruto, which was currently bleeding in Kurama's fangs, widened its eyes and spoke with barely any change in its tone. "Oh hey Kurama. When did you get here?" And then Kurama closed his jaws, which made Naruto's head explode like a water balloon. The gore landed on, well, almost everyone, considering the force with which Kurama had closed his mouth. By the time Kurama came back to his senses and Naruto, who has regenerated almost instantly, stopped laughing hysterically, the palace would be reeking of piss and shit that everyone released in fear. Did I mention that everyone was passed out in their own filth? It will be years before everyone in Yaokai faction was able to overcome the trauma. That is of course if Naruto didn't put them through so much trauma regularly that they became desensitized to it or became insane. Few days later, Kurama looked at his wife who was too shocked to respond and sighed in relief. He looked back at his brother Naruto, who looked serious right now, which was quite a rarity. But their current discussion was indeed quite serious. Are you? Yes, I'm sure that the pathetic waste of space is dead. I was there. The only thing I'm sad about is that I wasn't the one to kill him. But I guess getting killed by his own son more than made up for it. I did kill Lucifer after that though. To the angel faction, the only ones who knows the truth of his death. Both their god and Lucifer killed each other. Kurama felt annoyed at being stooped mid-sentence, but he could understand it. He would be like Naruto too, if he already knew what others were going to say most of the time, without even trying simply because of having too much experience with the world, and try to get the conversation forward to get finished with it soon. He then put those thoughts out of his mind and focused on what Naruto had said. That certainly explains why the angel faction had closed itself completely and why they are not helping the church in the crusades. Unlike his wife, he was not shocked to find out that Naruto knew of their spy in the Great War, nor was he surprised to know that he was not seen by anyone other than the spy, because Naruto knew that the news of his appearance will reach Kurama this way. He was also not surprised by the knowledge that Naruto was manipulating a few things behind the scenes of the Great War, or the knowledge that he did all that before the Great War even started. So what the hell have you been doing all this while? It's been decades since I heard the news of your appearance. Naruto looked sad and furious for a moment before he was calm and serious again. I'll tell you later, right now I want to go and visit a few places. Then Naruto looked at Yusaka with a warm and loving expression and spoke. Yusaka-chan, I'll be taking over the job of the leader of Yaokai faction. Kurama mentally shouted in happiness. Yusaka however looked horrified. I can't. Now that you are here, I'm unsuited for the job, so is Kurama. We might look good as the face of the kingdom, but the actual running needed to be done by intelligent people instead of charismatic salesmen. Naruto stopped Yusaka with a raise of a hand and continued speaking when he saw that she was still not satisfied with his argument. I will be the face of the kingdom, or rather, the empire that I plan to build. You don't have to worry about that. Kurama deadpanned at Naruto and spoke in a dry voice. You just don't want to do the paperwork. Naruto's gobsmacked expression at being read so easily was a thing of legend. Kurama really wished that this world had one of those camera things that elemental nations had. He really wanted to capture the scene. Yes, they do. Episode 2, Naruto gets his picture taken for ninja registration in that ridiculous paint. He howled in laughter and even Yusaka chuckled in amusement. Naruto grumbled under his breath, but his twitching lips gave away his own amusement. Naruto-sama, the people will not accept this. You are our god, and it should be you ruling all of us. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Then it's a good thing that we are not a democracy. I don't care what stupid people who don't know shit think. I care about what I and my group of advisor will think. Naruto's gaze softened and he continued speaking. The world wouldn't have actually known that you were taking care of the kingdom, and I would still be doing a lot of jobs, so you really don't have to feel like you're stealing my job or something, and if you're worried about disappointing me, then you have no need to worry. If you have problems, then I'll help you anytime. You're my descendant, my children, and I love and pamper my children, not push some kind of expectations on them. Misaka sighed. She now understood what Kurama meant, that it sometimes felt like Naruto was reading his mind. She too felt the same right now. He had taken all the wind out of her sails. And I know how to actually be a king. I've been one in one of my adventures. Really? A king? How did that happen? Kurama asked with quite a bit of intrigue. He knew that Naruto hated taking care of unknown people, especially unknown stupid people, and thus hated the act of ruling with a passion. Misaka too was intrigued, but not for what Kurama was thinking, but for the simple fact that she wanted to know how her god was as a king. Well, I was on a vacation. Smack. Misaka looked to her right to see Kurama looking exasperated after he was done face palming. He then spoke to Yusaka, knowing that she was confused. Every time Naruto has even tried to take a vacation, things go to hell, quite literally sometimes. Kurama then looked at Naruto and raised his eyebrow. So how many vacations did you take in these 30 centuries? And what happened? Naruto smiled excitedly. 3. It was fucking awesome. The first time I took a vacation in an advanced non-supernatural Earth, which was in year 2022, and 10,000 people got stuck in a death game. And that was just the start. Things went to hell after that with all the evil plots and psychopaths popping up all around. What is virtual reality? Yusaka asked lamely, almost half the conversation going over her head. I'll see. And then he chuckled. The sound chilled their hearts and made Yusaka worry that maybe ruling under Naruto was not such a good idea, or even living under his rule for that matter. He of course ignored them and continued. The second time was also in a non-supernatural Earth in year 2008, and the fucking zombie apocalypse started. Oh, it was glorious. All you can slaughter Buffett, both zombies and the annoying humans. Maybe the world was actually supernatural. I mean, those tits on those schoolgirls were definitely supernatural. What the hell is a zombie? Kurama questioned after getting over Naruto's last sentence, or his general insane behavior, and broke Naruto out of his trance and made his eyes wide in horror. You've got to be kidding me, you don't know about zombies, damn it. I need to take over the entertainment industry completely, maybe even publish some of my adventures as movies, books and anime. Yes, that sounded nice, of course I will change a few things. Kurama shared an uneasy glance with his wife and decided to not speak again, else they might end up as lab rats on some table. The gleam in his eyes and the kind of plans he was muttering under his breath while chuckling darkly were really not how he expected this conversation to go. Naruto was even more insane than he remembered, and that was saying something, considering the insanity Naruto has been up to in the elemental nations. The third time I decided to go into a more special world, a world where supernatural was almost extinct. The world was shitty, it was somewhere near this era, 11th to 13th century, the food was shit, the houses were shit, the roads were shit, everything was disgusting and covered in cattle dung. Still it was looking good for me, no special incident for 2 whole months. Can you believe it? I even took a 10 to 11-year-old girl as a student to pass the time, and then suddenly, as if the world realized about my existence, the whole world went to hell, the kingdoms went at war, supernatural things were back again. It's been 23 centuries now, and I still don't know how I became the king of the 7 kingdoms. It was bloody insane. I wanted to burn the kingdom down and leave the place, but was barely able to hold back. Well, it was good that I was training Daenerys and helping her from the shadows. In the end she became a suitable replacement for me, and then I left the place after faking my death in the most bloody gruesome way that I could manage. I'm quite sure that I almost traumatized hardcore warriors with the amount of blood and gore I was covered in, and most of it was mine. Naruto looked blankly at nothing in particular, watching the scenes from his memory with a crazed gleam in his eye and a twisted smile on his face. Isaka chuckled nervously. That's good story, Naruto-sama. I guess I will become the leader of Yaokai faction, seeing as how busy you actually are, and I obviously can't say no after seeing at how both you and Kurama wanted me to be the leader. Naruto smirked internally while making sure that he still looked insane on the outside. The plan to shift all responsibility on others was successful. And I didn't even have to lie. Here. 1245 AD. Naruto stared at the current scene with amusement. He was currently floating in sky a few hundred meters above ground. The sky was purple and all around him there were signs of destruction and death. Well, at least the Devil Civil War was finally coming to a close. Right now, a few devils who were beneath him, both literally and figuratively, were having one of the last fights. The sissy-looking boy was Surzich's Gremory, his friend Ajuka Astarath by his side, along with their once enemy Grafia Lucifuge. On the opposite side were only 2 devils, Shalba Beelzebub and Rizvium Live and Lucifer. There was no one else around. Those size of destruction and population can be seen far away. They were able to escape, most of them, due to the girly Reti's stupid behavior at trying to have his enemies redeem themselves. If it wasn't for Grafia's presence, then those 2 would have escaped as well. Of course it was, freezing time, and cutting their escape by throwing hordes of weapon made of ice was a really good strategy. No wonder she was considered as the 4th super devil with that ability of hers. The reason for his current amusement? Well, I'll burn for this, you traitorous whore. Do you hear me? I'll burn for betraying us like that. For betraying me just for some Gremory filth. We are descendants of Mao. You should be happy to die in our name. You should. Well, the cliché lines being spoken were really stupid. Seriously, did the guy find them from some anime or manga? Oh wait, this dimension has not created an anime or manga yet. Crap, well hell, just have to visit one of the normal dimensions to get his source of fun. Let's hope that this time when he enters a normal world 10,000 kids don't get stuck in a video game or the zombie apocalypse. Can't forget that one. Wasn't his life just fucking awesome? Why would he be sarcastic? Zombie apocalypse were awesome, especially when you have a massive 3-meter large scythe of a Zanpakuto as your weapon. Too many innocent deaths. Well, it was his fault for the stupid ones not watching any zombie TV shows or movies and preparing properly. And why would be death of innocence be a bad thing? Death was nice, she was calm, cool, loving and sweet, she embraces everyone equally, living not that's a hard thing, he should know he was an immortal. See, you didn't even feel pain after death, you only felt pain when you are alive, mental or physical. Okay, let's stop talking about why zombie apocalypse is a good thing and focus of current cliché villain dialogue spewing monster. The funniest thing, to Naruto at least, was that the thing was spewing similar lines from almost 5 minutes now. Even his current partner Rizvium was feeling annoyed if his eye rolls and exasperated sighs were anything to go by. Grafia was feeling annoyed too, if her twitching eye was anything to go by. Ajuka looks like he would rather be anywhere else than Surzich's. Well, Naruto really didn't care for the pretty boy who reminded him too much of his useless father. He really felt like this man would abandon his own wife and child for his job. Just like Minato abandoned Kushina and him, Naruto wondered if the man would sacrifice his life for some stupid reason to seal some monster, while completely forgetting about his wife and son too. High above and somewhere no one knew, Fate's eyes widened and she froze in shock at Naruto's speculation. If she didn't know any better, she would wonder if the boy developed power to see the future, considering that Surzich's Lucifer would sacrifice his life to seal away 1/6 of a small piece of Trihex away, completely ignoring about his wife and son. Should she mention this to Naruto? Meh, probably not. Back in Underworld, Naruto was still thinking about similarities between Surzich's and his father. Perhaps he should kill him right now and save the world another insane and broken child like himself being born. Nah, it'll be fun, maybe they'll be able to trade stories and compare whose father was worse. He wondered why Grafia didn't kill the useless thing yet, or Rizvium, he really seemed like the guy who kills his annoying comrades. Well, it was good for him, he could certainly use this chance to his advantage. And so he changed the direction of his gravity manipulation spell. Before it was keeping him afloat, now it was taking him down at 10 times the speed of Earth's gravity. He crash landed right behind the annoying thing. Rizvium, who had much better reflexes, jumped away the instant he felt the impact. Shalba. Not so much. Sorry about that, but you were annoying the beautiful lady. Naruto's voice echoed through the cloud of smoke, his words bringing a small twitch on Grafia's lips, no one knowing whether the twitch was for a frown or a smile. The smoke cleared a second later, revealing the scene that she somewhat expected to see. Naruto was standing there gazing into Shalba's eyes with somewhat unnerving intensity. Surzich's, Ajuka and Rizvium though clenched their fists tighter, due to worry at what they were seeing. After all, Naruto was gazing at Shalba's eyes very closely while holding his severed head in his hand with the man's hair. His body was lying on Naruto's feet, a hole through his chest where his heart should be, but the body was completely wrong. It looked all shriveled up as if Shalba has been dead for centuries. Then right in front of their eyes the head of the man changed, bubbling, expanding, contracting all at once, and soon became a transparent crystal ball with some black mist-like substance floating in the middle of the ball. She knew what it was, a lacrima. How did she knew it? Well. Naruto looked right at Grafia and smirked. Instantly he felt the telltale signs of it activating. Everything was frozen, the leaves, fires, the people, except for Grafia and Naruto. Before she could even try anything, she was pinned on the ground with Naruto looming over her, looking at her with barely concealed lust in his eyes, pressing his body against her own, making her feel like she was drowning in his presence. You break my heart, Fia-chan, acting all shocked and afraid, as if you've never even seen me. Naruto whispered in Grafia's ear. She just smirked and grabbed his hair before pulling his head away from her ear and then kissing him deeply with her lips. You were taking amusement in how that fool was blabbering on and annoying me, you deserved a punishment for that. Naruto smiled, his eyes softened and his heart thrummed with desire. He hugged his secret wife tightly and felt the warmth of her body. How strange that a woman with control over ice had such a warm body. But then again it was not that strange with how warm her heart was. I miss you, you belong with me and not these worthless insects. I gave you everything, I trained you, I gave you the power to stop time and become strong enough to reach the level of Super Devil. I gave you my love when you were left to die by everyone. You are mine, your soul, your heart and your body, everything, and I can't hold it anymore. I need you with me, beloved. It's been 25 years since we have started doing this. I can't stay away now. I'll burn down the underworld if I need to. Grafia hugged her husband tightly to calm him down. It was known to all of Naruto's lovers and other close people about how broken Naruto truly was, how he craved love and attention from those who he took a liking to. She too wanted to be with him, but she wanted to help save her species from mutual extinction for some stupid civil war. Now she just wanted to abandon the power-hungry devils and go on a vacation with Naruto. She wondered how things would have gone had she not met Naruto, but then she quickly put those thoughts out of her mind. What could have happened doesn't matter. What did matter was what did happen. These were Naruto's words and something she herself respected. Soon, my beloved, soon we will be together, but first we need to do something about the others. I think it's time the world knew about the Black Dragon Emperor and his empire. Naruto smiled. He caressed Grafia's cheek while staring at her beautiful eyes. And what about my Snow Empress? Grafia smiled and kissed Naruto again. Not yet, now here is the plan. A few weeks later, Misaka breathed a sigh of relief as she sat on a chair on the side of road, watching the daily activity of people around. It was fun, coming here on a vacation with Kurama, they both certainly needed it. Right now he was finding them something to eat, and so she was given a few moments rest. The current situation was however not one of enjoyment, not to the rest of the world at least. Unlike the Great War, the Crusades were still continuing. The church was at least persistent if not stupid and bigoted, but without the support from from heaven they were losing ground quite fast. It was already obvious that this will be the last crusade from Holy Church. The human world was in mess, and Italy was actually in the center of it, which was obvious. Europe was in its entirety was actually on a verge of breaking down. Jerusalem, Acre, Vatican, etc. All the holy cities were here after all. All the more expressive religions were based here. Well, it was not like Asian factions were not trigger happy, but at least they didn't go around killing millions for some stupid and insane reason, and let's hope it stayed that way. The presence of church is spreading quite fast in their continent as well though. They, i.e. Kurama and her were here for more than just vacation too. They were looking at the conditions of the world. From what they could see, things were deteriorating very fast. Already in a lot of places riots were happening. Normal people were taking up pitchforks and torches and standing up against magicians, along with people from different species. The vampires are already hidden deeply from what she had heard last, with layers upon layers of defense over their stronghold in Romania. King Vlad Tepes III Vlad the Impaler, or as he is nowadays known Dracula, was doing a very good job of taking care of his people, feeding them while also not leaving hordes of bodies. Rather, they were not leaving any single evidence of their feedings. There were still some rogue vampires around causing trouble, but that was unavoidable. The dragons were completely hidden, and the reason for that was obvious. The 2 dragon emperors were slain during the Great War, their souls sealed inside sacred gears. Too long-iness if the information was correct. The rest were furious and quite a bit scared too, and currently in the refuge of the Dragon Kings, Tiamat to be precise. And wasn't that a shocking news, finding out that the Dragon King Tiamat was Naruto's adopted little sister. The first time she saw Tiamat in her human appearance she was frozen with shock. What the hell was with all these insane dragons and taking appearance of 12-year-old little girls? Even Ophis was like that. She was very angry at Kurama when she found out that Kurama knew of Tiamat, or rather when to use EUMAKI former Marvel's relation with Naruto, considering that the dragon has been in this world for over 5 to 6 centuries now and didn't tell her about it. She put that out of her mind and focused on the current affairs of the rapidly deteriorating world. Ark elves and the forest elves were disappearing very fast as well, though the reason for that is a different one. Some stupid magician decided to capture some elves and experimented on them, trying to create some kind of new species. A homunculus that derives satisfaction from servitude, a whole new species created to do household chores. Sometimes the stupidity of these magicians surprised even her, and they also gave the new species the unimaginative name of house elves. Whoever created them was quite proud of his achievement, until of course he, his family, his friends and his friend's family was slaughtered by angry dark elves. Their life force stolen and souls sucked out and used in dark rituals and their body decorated and displayed for the world to see. But the practice was already in motion and quite hard to abolish at this stage. From what she could tell, at least the practice of owning house elves was only done in Britain. The rest of the world considered the act to be deplorable. Others such as werewolves, fairies, velas and dwarfs etc. were all disappearing from the world quite fast as well. Goblins, well, they were readying for another war with magical Europe if rumors are to be believed. Don't these two have anything better to do? Activities from other factions was quite minimal as well. Greeks, Norse, Celtics, Aztecs, Egyptians and so many more, all were going and taking their followers into hiding. Activity from the 3 biblical faction was minimal. The reason for devils was obvious. With their civil war at high stage, last she heard almost half the pillars have perished, and only 35 to 37 remained, and the end of the war was nowhere in sight. Fallen angels were completely concentrating of recovering their forces and managing what was left of them. Heaven on the other hand was a mystery. To the rest of the world, not a single bit of information was leaking out the place and its activity were completely stopped. The way things are going, people were actually wondering if the god actually perished in the Great War, but most of the factions put that thought as absurdity. Though not the strongest, Jehovah was in no way a weak god. If anyone could defeat him, which participated in the war, it would be the 2 heavenly dragons, but the god was seen battling in the war after the killing and sealing of Drag and Albion. Not to mention, such a knowledge would be very difficult to hide, but it would certainly make sense of the actions of heaven. If only they knew that the god was almost 3/4 dead before the war even started. Oh well, it didn't matter, it was actually better this way. She really didn't want to imagine what depths the church would fall to if they felt that the world was ending or something as stupid as that. She put that thought at the back of her mind. There were more species and everyone was going into hiding. Well, everyone in countries with the presence of church at least. Japan was still as open as it was previously, and there were minimal effects of this upcoming dark age that people are calling the upcoming era in her country. But she could see it. The time was coming near for all the supernatural world to hide from sight. They were fine now, But that didn't mean a thing. It didn't even matter if normal humans of her country accepted creatures of different species, news of their existence would reach other countries, and they would come to their country, not just the normal population, but other supernatural factions as well. They'll ask them to hide so that their presence is not noticed, and they will have to do it, even they could not stand against the combined might of the rest of the world. Well, they could actually, with Naruto around, but she wouldn't be surprised if he actually slaughtered every single person of a lot of factions for just annoying him. He was a very good king and god, kind to his followers and loved them all like his children, but the rest of the world, including the non-magical population of her own country, were nothing more than annoying insects to him. Hisaka frowned sadly. She didn't like this, not one bit. She firmly believed that they could have good relations with normal humans. Her own country's conditions were proof of that. She put those depressing thoughts out of her mind. She was here to get a little time off from all the work she had to do and to enjoy her life with Kurama. She was surprised to see that Kurama was already sitting near her with a worried frown on his face and steaming food on a metal tray in his hands. She smiled at his and kissed his cheek lovingly, showing that there was nothing to worry about. At that moment a rabid yokai walked towards them with apprehensive footsteps, hidden with glamour and illusions of course. Hisaka sighed and raised her arm already knowing why he was here. The man put a scroll in her hand and shifted nervously. "What is it?" spoke Kurama to the messenger, seeing as his wife was in no mood to open the scroll. The man looked like he was about to piss himself in fear and shuddered. It's about Naruto-sama. The man looked to be on verge of a breakdown and almost ready to cry. "Oh boy, that is not good," thought both Kurama and Yusaka looking at the man's reluctance to speak. They thought the man was afraid of what Naruto had done and traumatized by it, but the truth was something else entirely. They were not scared of what Naruto had done and its repercussions, but what Yusaka and Kurama's reaction will be to the knowledge. He just hoped that they would murder the poor messenger, i.e., himself. Then Naruto-sama visited Olympus. Hisaka and both Kurama froze in shock and paled in fear at what Naruto might have done. And he kind of castrated Zeus after calling him goat rapist because he can't even get a goat to sleep with him willingly without taking the appearance of its husband. Olympus has declared war on us. The messenger ran as fast as he could after saying all that, leaving Yusaka who passed out from shock and Kurama who was wishing that he could also pass out like his wife to forget that the last minutes even happened. Damn you, Naruto. He ran even faster after the voice of Kurama reached him from 2 kilometers away. Maybe it's time I just retire. Thanks for watching.